Welcome to probably one of the most important lessons in this module. We're going to be showing you how to build out a fully AI automated YouTube channel, more specifically, a faceless AI automated YouTube channel. Make sure to check out all the lessons in this module as they are all interconnected. As always, you can find the Zap in the description below, but make sure you stay to the end because we're going to show you a very powerful tool and function so you can set up just one Zap that'll be able to post custom content on all days of the week. But for now, we're going to jump into one of the most important Zaps in this course. All right, so we are in our Zap. It's going to be called AI YouTube channel. And the purpose of this specific Zap is we're going to build out a food AI channel. Specifically, the content that is going to be given here is going to be a recipe or a food item that's being created. Some of the blocks used in this current Zap aren't going to be used in this specific video, but used in later videos in this module. So make sure you add all the blocks associated here. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into today's Zap. Okay, to start off, we're going to start off with a very simple trigger, which is going to be your scheduler. Like any good social media, we're going to make sure that we always be posting. And for our context, we're going to go ahead and say every day. We're going to go ahead and say continue. From here, we're going to go ahead and say whether you want to trigger on weekends or not. We're going to go ahead and say yes. And we're going to say the time we're going to trigger is just going to be noon. Obviously, whatever context you want to use, go ahead and go with that. We're going to go ahead and say test trigger. And then we're going to go ahead and add our first block here, which is going to be a chatgpt block. So essentially, look at this block as the one initiating everything that's going to happen from here on out on this specific video. So whatever your niche is, this is kind of where you would build it out from here. For our purpose today, we're going to be building out a food niche. So we're going to go ahead and hit conversation, hit continue, continue. And the first block in this Zap we're going to say is generate a random food dish. And then we're going to put parameters. Don't repeat food items. And let's see if I can spell today. Don't repeat food items. We're going to go ahead and make sure we up our model. Actually, we can keep it 3.5. That is fine. We're going to go ahead and say food list as a memory key. The purposes of the memory key is to make sure it understands contextually what it said before. So in this context, since we've identified, hey, don't repeat past food dishes. If you say meatloaf, don't ever say meatloaf again. This is going to be important to make sure that every single video that is pushed out on your channel is unique content and you don't regurgitate past content, which obviously would cause issues with your viewers. So from here, we're going to go ahead and hit continue and see if it's sufficient enough. We might need to add more context here, but let's see what it comes up with. Okay, so it seems like it gave too much information here. We're going to go ahead and make sure it just generates the food item slash, thing we're going to be cooking here, as you'll see why that is important. So we're going to say don't repeat food items, just generate the dish, no text before or after. And then from here, we're going to go ahead and add a 1 here. We want to refresh the memory key, so we're like in a new chat. It doesn't use this as context of what it said before, so we get a possible better structuring for its output. So let's go ahead and see what here. All right, perfect. It does a better structuring. That is just what we want. From here, we're going to add another ChatGPT block here. And we're going to go ahead and use this ChatGPT block for the purpose of building out the recipe. So we're going to go ahead and hit conversation. We're going to hit continue, continue. And we're going to say based off this food dish, semicolon parentheses, grab that food dish. We're going to say generate a recipe on how to make it, include ingredients, and how to cook. All right, perfect. We're going to want to go ahead and up this one to model GPT-4 as we're dealing with more complex situation here. Obviously, this could work with 3.5, but I just like upping it in these contexts. Then we're going to say food recipe as a memory key. And let's go ahead and see what the output would be in this context for this structuring. Okay, so as you see here, it was able to get the ingredients, but it obviously cut off. That's not going to be consistent enough for what we want to do here. So let's go ahead and break this down just a little bit so the output is consistent. We're going to say generate a recipe on how to make it. Generate a list of ingredients to make this dish. So essentially we're going to block this off so that we have a list of ingredients to make this dish, and then The next block here will be essentially how to cook the dish. So we're going to do that. We're going to make sure we add a 1 here to clear the chat. Let's start with a better structuring here, and then let's let GPT do the work. Okay, so it came up with another issue. Seems like it is still having issues with the output here. No worries. What we can do here is we're going to say, generate a list of ingredients to make this dish. Just generate the ingredients, name, no text on how to prepare it, as some of the ingredients had like thinly sliced and stuff like that. We want to deal with that in a later block. So we're going to say generate a list of ingredients to make this dish. Just generate the ingredients name, no text on how to prepare it. We're going to go do that. We're going to add a 2 here to refresh the chat, and we're going to test this action again. All right, perfect. So we got our ingredients list here. Really good stuff. Now let's go ahead and create the block on how to cook it. So what we can do here though is we can go ahead and duplicate this. So there's a nice little trick here. You can duplicate it because we've already kind of pre-texted it and fine-tuned it to what we wanted to do. We can continue here. I'm going to say, based off this food dish, generate how to cook it. And then let's see if that is sufficient enough for GPT to handle. If it's not, we'll obviously fine-tune. As you'll notice through this tutorial, a lot of times with GPT, you just got to fine-tune your chats. You got to mess around with the outputs. But what's so great now is with that memory key is that we can ensure that every time this automation is to occur, it's going to be consistent on its output, and we won't have to worry about discrepancies in the future. Okay, so I had to do a little bit more fine tuning for the chat in order to ensure that the output would come out. And I basically said just the instructions on how to cook it in 5 steps. Each step is a maximum 1 sentence. This keeps it consistent, keeps it well known, and keeps the details exactly how we want it for when the content will be ingested by your potential audience here. So from here, we're going to go ahead and add a storage block. And essentially what a storage block allows us to do is have the data that's been produced here be pushed off into another Zap. So in this context, the reason we're building out a storage block is so that we can essentially have it so we can put the recipe and how to cook it in the YouTube description. So from here, we're going to go ahead and say set value. And we're going to go ahead and say continue. We're going to set the key, which is going to be how the data is associated with. We're going to set the key to ingredient. We'll do ingredients, plural. We're going to go ahead and grab the value that was just created here, which was the ingredients. Let's go ahead and set up another storage block here for the cooking recipe. All right, so we're going to add another storage block here, do storage. So this is going to be a very valuable tool to use in other contexts as you get more familiar with Zapier. Being able to pass data between different flows comes into a lot of help when dealing with more complex situations. But from here, we're going to do instructions, and then we're going to add the value of the cooking instructions that we just created. All right, perfect. So the reasoning we're saving those is so we can pass that over to the description that we're going to later on edit in another flow. But from here, let's go ahead and start building out what's next. All right, so what is next for us is we're going to be building out the thumbnail in this flow. So we're going to add we're going to be adding an OpenAI block here. And the purposes of the OpenAI block is so we can access DALL-E to generate an image. Now, in theory, I'm going to have a preset image here that I kind of already have a prompt for food. If you wanted to, you could add a GPT block here, setting up a variable prompt for the image to generate with. But for our context, I already have a prompt that I'm going to use here. This prompt was found on PromptBase. I'm going to go ahead and link it in the description below. But as you know, PromptBase is a marketplace for prompts. And as you see here, we got a professional food photography for gourmet. Then we have the brackets of the variable it's requesting. So we're going to go ahead and remove the brackets and input the one item here, which is the lamb. And from here, we're going to go ahead and make sure we increase the size of the thumbnail to 1024 by 1024. We're going to hit continue here, and we're going to hit test action. If you want to see what your image would look like, all you need to do is copy this. You would open a new tab, and then you'd be able to essentially paste it. And this is going to be the image of the lamb dish that was in question. Really cool stuff. Not only is it important to have an image for your thumbnails, it's also important to have text. So we're going to have to go ahead and add another ChatGPT block here. And we're going to basically make the thumbnail text. As you know, you don't want to have too much text on a thumbnail, so we'll make sure we set up our context and parameters correctly here. We're going to say, based on this food dish, we're going to do semicolon parentheses, grab the food dish, and we're going to format this pretty nice here. So we're going to go ahead and essentially say, generate 1 to 2 words per line on how to cook this food dish. We're gonna do parameters. We are looking for 3 lines in total. All right, perfect. We're gonna go ahead and do GPT-4 as this is a little bit more complex of a request. And then we're gonna go ahead and say thumb food for like thumbnail, for text for food item. We're gonna hit continue here. We're gonna test this action. All right, so as you see there, we got a Marathi lamb, saute spices, layer rice. Let's go ahead and tweak this a little bit. Let's go to say generate 1 to 2 words per line on how to cook the food dish. Make sure to include the word recipe so it is clear to the individual what they're clicking into, that it is a recipe video. We're gonna hit 1 here for restructuring on text, and we're gonna retest this action. All right, perfect. This is what we're looking for. So lamb recipe, biryani preparation, cookie method. The next thing we want to add here is we want to make sure to separate the data into 3 separate blocks here for the thumbnail we're going to be creating. So we're going to go to formatter. We're going to be formatting text. We're going to choose text. We're going to hit continue, and then we're going to go ahead and do split. And from here, we're going to make sure we use the input of what we just created there. It's just going to be that, and then we're going to go ahead and say the separator, and it's going to basically be new line, but I'm going to grab the exact formatting right now. I'm going to go ahead and paste that, and then we're going to segment it so that basically all are separate fields. From here, we're going to test this action, and then basically every single one of those lines should be a separate variable, which will come into a good use case here when we build out the banner bear image of it. For now, I'm just going to add the banner bear block. We will be creating the banner bear thumbnail later in this video. But for now, essentially, this is where we're going to be creating the thumbnail that's going to encompass the image we just generated and the text we just generated. But we'll jump into that a little later in this tutorial. Let's go ahead and continue on building out this flow. All right, so the next thing we need to add here is going to be a storage block. And the specific use case of this storage block is going to be basically getting the banner bear's ID, which is basically referencing the image. We're essentially going to need this thumbnail for another Zapflow. Because one big thing about AI automation when it comes to YouTube is Zapier can do basically 90% of the work. But when it comes to thumbnails and automatically uploading thumbnails, we're going to have to use a slightly different software working along with Zapier. But you'll see what I mean when I get to it. For now, we're just going to hit continue here. And we're going to hit cook thumb. And then essentially the value, which I believe I don't think I have access to it. I won't, but we'll put the banner bear ID. That will make more sense as we go. Let's go ahead and rename this. I'll rename everything here. So when you go ahead and add it to your project, you won't get too confused by, all the generic names here. All right, so next we're going to go ahead and start building out the actual speech that is going to occur in our video here. We're going to do another chatgpt block, and this is going to be the introduction of the video. So we're going to do that. We're going to say based on this food dish and the fact, actually we'll just do based on this food dish because we just want to start simple first. We'll go like this. Ahead and added the next couple sentences here. So I said, give an introduction to a YouTube video explaining how we are going to showcase how to cook this food item today. And then basically setting a cap at 2 sentences because we don't want this to drag on. It's just the introduction, like, hey, we're cooking this lamb dish. Like, this is essentially what's going to be happening. Here's the context for the video. We're going to up that to GPT-4. We're going to do intro food. And from here, we're going to hit continue and we're going to test this action. Perfect. So as you see here, hey, food lovers, in today's video, we'll be talking about the delicious journey to master the art of cooking the irresistible lamb biryani. I'm probably butchering how you say that. Perfect to impress your friends and family. Now, in the context that you'll be using captions in the video, we're going to want to format these quotation marks out. So I'm going to show you that real quick. We're just going to add another formatter block here. Format, and then we're going to be obviously manipulating text. So we're going to choose the event of text. Hit continue here. We're going to transform, and we're going to use the function of replace. We're going to grab the thing that was just generated. We're going to do find the quotation marks. We're going to replace it with empty space, and then now it should not have the quotation marks. This will make more sense when we get to Cynthia and setting up the actual AI video that's going to be associated with the script. But for now, you know how to essentially get rid of quotation marks if that becomes a nuisance. Okay, so we're going to add another ChatGPT block here. And what I like to do in these kind of videos is give them a quick fact or a quick, teaser of what's about to be in the video. So we're going to go ahead and just create a quick fact or a quick teaser about the dish we're making today. All right. Okay, so we're going to do based on this food dish, semicolon, parentheses. And that's why I showed you earlier in this video why that very first ChatGPT block is so fundamental. So whatever niche you're in or whatever avenue you're going down, you're typically going to be referencing that first block for everything else because that kind of sets the tone of what the topic of the video is. So typically what you want to do is make sure that first block is very general, very concise, and straight to the point, so you don't find yourself, going off track, or it isn't like in flow of what a video should be from start to finish. So I went ahead and typed out, give a bonus tip on how to cook, limit to max of 1 sentence, parameters, talk to me like a human. The parameters I want to throw in there real quick, just as a little quick tip. If you find yourself dealing with ChatGPT and the output is not consistent or not how you like it, you can add that little parameter tool there. And on top of that, instead of being so specific, I wanted to give like a general idea here. So just give a bonus tip on how to cook, which I think will be more practical in this kind of format, in this kind of context. From here, we're just going to call it cook tip. And we can go ahead and up our model to GPT-4. As you see here, our tip was add saffron to the rice water for a fragrant and vibrant golden color in the finished lamb dish we're dealing with here. That's really good stuff here. Let's go ahead and dive into the deep dish here, where we're going to essentially now build out the main script that shows us how to cook the lamb dish. Now that we've added the cooking tip right after the introduction, let's go ahead and jump into the meat of this video, which is going to be essentially explaining how to cook and the cooking process. So let's start off with another ChatGPT block here, and we're going to go ahead and rename this ChatGPT block to start with ingredients. And essentially the idea here, let's go to spell this. The idea here is whatever you're beginning, whatever niche you're in, essentially, you want to structure it basically in 3 main parts typically. So for us, we're going to probably do start with ingredients, and then the other 2 parts will be talking about the cooking phase, and then the last part will just be a nice little conclusion, as you see here. So we're going to go ahead and say conversation, and we're going to go ahead and put out a nice little start of ingredients section of this video. We're going to say based off this food dish. As always, we reference the initial topic generator here, and we're going to go topic of video, lamb. And I went ahead and renamed all these blocks so it's easier for you to digest when you add it to your own project. We're going to say generate an introduction, or generate a response saying how you will need ingredients to create this dish. And then on top of that, we're going to add a little bit of parameters here. Let's go ahead and add a parameter that we had earlier of talk like a human, as we want to make this as easy digestible as possible. And then on top of that, we're going to add one more parameter. Just add a little indentation there. We're going to say this part of the script is this part of the script. This is part 1 of the script telling the user to check out the YouTube description for the full list of ingredients for this dish. We're going to say a max of 2 sentences. So essentially the idea here is we're going to start off with the first scene after the introduction, the cooking tip. We're going to do a little bit of an introduction like, hey, these are the ingredients you need for this dish. Go ahead and check out the description below, and you'll be able to get, copy it or copy it to your notes and so on. All right, so as you see here, we got our little generation here. To create the delicious lamb biryani, I'll need a list of ingredients. Be sure to check out the YouTube description for a full list of ingredients for the required scrumptious dish. Good stuff here. I added a memory key, and I actually had to up my model to GPT-4 in order to execute this. So on top of that, let's go ahead and do part 2. So we're going to go ahead and add another ChatGPT block here. We're going to go ahead and rename this to part 2. We're going to choose the conversation as the event. We're going to continue here. And then we're going to go ahead and add our user message. What's great though is we can go ahead and just copy this. We're going to Command A, Command C. From here, we're going to Command V this. And we're going to just edit this slightly. So one thing we need to add here is the fact that this is part 2. So we need to make sure we reference part 1. We're going to go ahead and do part 1 here. We're going to go make sure we input part 1 that we just created here. So what's nice is now you understand that every single one of these slides can reference previous slides so that the conversation flows throughout the video. So we're going to do part 1 here, generate part 2, which goes over the beginning steps to creating this dish. And then we're going to go ahead and do there. We're going to say a max of 3 sentences. period. And then we're gonna make sure we spell this correct. Make sure we up our model to GPT-4. Okay, so we got our nice little part 2 here. The issue is that we have part 2 identified, which we don't want to have, obviously, in the dialogue. So what we want to do here is we're going to go ahead and come back up here. I'm going to say, don't mention the part. And let's see if that's sufficient enough. As always, we're going to go ahead and clear the memory key. So we start with a new chat. So it doesn't have that, previous output as context to how to structure it. We want a new way to structure it. Let's go ahead and let it generate. All right, there we go. So as you see here, we jump into part 2 of this video and we got our nice little max 3 sentences. Let's go ahead and save us some more time here. And all you need to do is come up here is to duplicate. And then we're gonna go ahead and rename this to part 3. From here, we're gonna go ahead and open that. Now that we're in it, we're gonna go ahead and make sure we do part 2, semicolon, parentheses, and obviously we wanna identify part 2. So as you see here, this gives us a lot of context that GPT is going to continue the flow, understand what's said before, so it sounds very natural. We're going to say generate part 3, which is going to be, which goes over the final steps. Say the final steps to creating the dish, a max of 3 sentences. Don't mention the parts. We're going to say talk like a human. We like that. We can go ahead and make sure we do part 3, food. And then from here, everything else looks good. So we're gonna hit continue and we're gonna retest this action. One thing I want to point out is as you notice in the parentheses that data from part 1 and part 2 is being identified, and then it understands that it needs to generate part 3, which we'll get here pretty soon. So what I did is I went ahead and written up, generate a conclusion script saying goodbye to a YouTube video. Thank you for watching. Encompass in the script that our cooking channel provides education for cooking food. Like and subscribe if you feel like you've learned something today, and then parameters, a max of 4 sentences. You can obviously add more context here. Maybe you want to put in your YouTube channel name. Maybe you want to have a CTA for a specific thing in the description of your video and so on. From here, we're just going to go ahead and hit continue. We're going to retest this action, and this should be the final part of this YouTube video, at least script-wise. All right, great. So as you see here, we got our conclusion script for the video. Now, one thing I want to show you how to do as well is I'm going to show you how to make sure you know how to integrate images in your videos as well. So for this context, we're going to go with an AI generated image. And more specifically, we're just going to have another image in the video showcasing what the dish could possibly look like. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate our thumbnail image block here. I'm going to come over here to outline, and I'm going to go ahead and drag it all the way to the bottom here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and little X here, come down here, and let's go ahead and rename this to image in video. And then this is essentially going to show you how to integrate images in your video, which could be very useful in any context for whatever you're creating on your niched YouTube channel. I'm going to hit retest action here, and then we should be able to generate a different version of the AI image that we're using from our thumbnail. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and add the final stages to the Zapier flow. We're going to first add a Cynthia block here, and essentially this is going to be what's going to generate the AI generated video. We're going to do from template. We're going to hit continue here, continue, and then we'll build this out. But for now, let's go ahead and add another block here, which is going to be chatgpt. And essentially what I'm building out here is that the first Cynthia block is going to be used as like the long form content, the landscape version. Now I'm going to add another feature here because we built out already so much context. Let's go ahead and make sure we build out a version of this that is a YouTube short, shouting out that this video just got created. So we're going to go ahead and hit conversation here, and we're going to go ahead and rename this to YouTube short. So I went ahead and put in a prompt here, and the idea essentially is that based off this food dish, which is the food dish that's going to be the topic of the video, generate a script asking watchers to watch this YouTube video. And context, this is a promo video to convince people to go to your channel and learn about cooking food. And then we put a parameter of 3 sentences max. Essentially, this is going to be the script that's used for the short that we push out automatically on our YouTube channel. From here, we're going to go ahead and do GPT-4, and we're going to do short food. And we're going to hit continue here and test that action. Perfect. So we got our script for our short, craving the delicious lamb. Look for no further. Head over to our YouTube channel to watch a step-by-step video tutorial and so on. Let's go ahead and add our final block to this Zapier flow, which is going to be another Cynthia block, but this is going to be used for the purpose of making that short. We have now officially created our Zapier flow when it comes to creating a AI YouTube channel. Obviously, You're going to want to diversify your content. So maybe you want to change the topic of the video, the style of the video, and so on. But for now, you have an idea of essentially how to build out an entire Zapier flow to build out an AI YouTube channel. Now let's go ahead and start filling in these blocks so it executes perfectly.